Hello, everybody. Greetings, book lovers everywhere, and welcome to E-Train Talks. I'm your host, Ethan. I'm a literacy advocate, a podcast host, and the founder and CEO of E-Train Talks, Inc., which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to inspiring a love of reading and ensuring every child has access to books. Today's episode is truly something special. I'm joined by an extraordinary guest, an author whose stories have not only touched my own heart, but also the hearts of millions of young people around the world. Well, not just young people, readers young and old. Her books have earned countless awards, widespread recognition, and, let's be honest, more than a few happy and heart-wrenching tears that may have touched the pages after people were crying, both tears of joy and sadness in reading her stories, because her books are so emotional. They're so beautifully written, and it is an absolute honor, in case you haven't guessed it already, I am talking to the one and only award-winning author who is celebrating 25 years of her first book, Because of Winn-Dixie, being out in the world. I'm here with Kate DiCamillo. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, and what a beautiful introduction. As you were talking, it made me think, do you have little free libraries in your neighborhood?
I actually have one of my own. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Of course you do. That's very on brand. I love all the little free libraries in my neighborhood. And one time I found a copy of Edward Tulane, Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane, which was my fourth novel. And somebody, it was in a kid's handwriting, had put a Post-it note on the front of it that said, "This book made my heart hurt in a good way." And that was one of the best reviews I've ever gotten. So I pulled it out, put it back in there, hope that somebody else's heart hurts in a good way. And so that's what your introduction made me think of.
Well, I think it's a perfect description. And for those who don't know, Kate DiCamillo has written many other stories as well, including The Tale of Despereaux, Flora and Ulysses, among many others. It would take maybe a couple minutes for me to list them all. So, so thank you so much again, Kate, for being here. And this is an interview that is celebrating 25 years of Because of Winn-Dixie being out in the world. So it's fitting that my first question is, how did this story change your life for the better? And what does 25 years mean to you?
Yeah, how did it change my life for the better? It changed my life in every possible way. And I this book to me is, I feel like I have an image in my head of, it's like this golden doorway that I got to walk through. Because of this book, I was able to write other books. I was able to connect with people. I was able to understand what it was that I was supposed to be doing in the world. And so it was this golden doorway that I walked through. And it also changed me as a human being, not just as, okay, I'm a writer, but it it's a book that, because people responded to it with their hearts, it changed my heart some. And so, and what does 25 years mean? 25 years means, I was just out walking this morning, and a neighbor, like 6 blocks over, stopped me and said that her niece was in a school when I came there 22 years ago, and that niece is now a grown up and a
Wow.
teacher and has her own children. And so it's kind of like I can see the whole, not just the life of the book, but the life of me in that span. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Yeah, it's so special. I've talked to some authors before, and that idea of like kind of full circle, seeing your readers grow up and become great people. Some may be shaped by your stories themselves. It's just beautiful, and
It,
you know,
it's an
I'm
overwhelming and wonderful feeling, and it's also, I remember the very first time it happened. I was in a signing line, and a woman said to me, "I'm a fourth grade teacher, and my fourth grade teacher read this book aloud to me when I was in fourth grade. And I decided then that I wanted to be a teacher so I could read it out loud." And I looked up at this person, and I'm like, "Do you realize the enormity of what you've just said? What a gift it is." And it is. it is, like you said, a full circle kind of thing.
That's amazing. And continuing with the theme of Because of Winn-Dixie, the title itself kind of feels like the beginning of a sentence, more than a title. Because of Winn-Dixie, this happened. Because of Winn-Dixie, that happened. So was that the plan when coming up with the title?
There was no plan because I had no idea what I was doing. I never thought it would be published. I remember that when I finished it, I went through reading, looking for the title, and there is a paragraph in there that begins, "Everything that happened to me that summer happened because of Winn-Dixie," and I remember underlining that and thinking, okay, maybe that would be a title. But part of, there were other titles that got, that we experimented with, and part of the interesting thing about this was that a lot of people didn't know what a Winn-Dixie grocery store was, and so it was just, wow, should we even call it Winn-Dixie at all? Because it's such it's a Southern grocery store chain, and a lot of the country didn't know it.
Mhm. So on that note, did the name Winn-Dixie come from Winn-Dixie grocery stores, or was there another source of inspiration for you?
Yeah, no, it was, I wrote the book during a really harsh winter here in Minnesota. And I grew up in Florida,
Mhm.
and I grew up not too far from a Winn-Dixie grocery store. And so to say the words Winn-Dixie sounded like going home. So
Mm.
it was just like I did not make a conscious choice. It was just like that, just it felt right. So
That's really great. And this idea of home, I feel like your books kind of become a second home for readers. It's well known that many teachers include Because of Winn-Dixie in their class curriculum. You just mentioned how someone's fourth grade teacher read it to them, then they became a fourth grade teacher, now they're reading it to their students. Some districts even make it required reading for entire schools. Why do you think
mm.
the story connects so well with kids, or rather, why do kids connect with it so well? And why do you think it continues to be a classroom favorite?
Golly, I don't know. I think part of it, and part of why I've gotten this extraordinary gift of people still reading the book is because of teachers and librarians reading it out loud. It is a book um, that is easy to read aloud. I mean, I think the cadences of it lend itself to being read aloud. And then all of these miraculous teachers and miraculous librarians. I mean, I hear from teachers who have read it out loud to their in their classroom every year since it was published, and who say, they think they could recite it. And so it's just that, to me, is where um something extraordinary happened, is how teachers and librarians reading it aloud changed the whole trajectory of that book and of my life, you know. And as long as can I get up on the soapbox for a minute? As long as we're talking about reading aloud is one of the most powerful things that anybody can do, then that's in the classroom, but also as a parent or a kid reading aloud to their parents, or grandparent reading to the, it's just this huge gift that really connects us in ways that we don't fully understand. It makes, I think, that safe third place. And I did not forget what you said, that beautiful compliment about people finding a home in the books. And that's what happens when you read a story out loud, I think, is you find that home together.
I 100% agree. And Because of Winn-Dixie, it's not just a masterpiece on an emotional level, but also on an award-winning level. So, the Newbery Committee actually awarded your book the prestigious John Newbery Honor. What was that experience like for you? Your first book receiving that level of an award?
I remember, it's like a flashbulb memories. You remember exactly I remember exactly where I was when I got that call, how utterly disbelieving I was.
Mhm.
And then it's such a it's an award that in the literary world, I mean, just people know about it. The general reading public knows the Newbery very well. And so I got the call, and then pretty soon after that, the media started calling. And I remember a local journalist here said, "Are you going to quit your job? Are you going to buy a house?" And I'm like, "No, no, no." And then, within I would say 6 months after that interview, all of those things happened. That's the power of that award. And, I went as a huge reader as a kid. I'm still a huge reader as an adult. But as a kid, I knew to look for that medal on a book, and it's amazing to me to think that it's on something that I wrote. So,
That is amazing. And Because of Winn-Dixie was published in 2000 and eventually was turned into a movie released in theaters in 2005. That, for one, is the author's dream, and to have it happen with your first book is incredible. So can
right.
you share how you learned that your book was going to become a movie, what the process was like, and
Yeah.
how much say you had? That's three questions in one, but
Yeah, I can do all of this. It's locally here we have a wonderful theater here in Minneapolis called the Riverview Theater, and we just did a 25th anniversary thing for Winn-Dixie there, but the 20th anniversary of the movie, which also premiered at that theater. So that was really fun. So I've been all of this has been on my mind. And I remember when the request came through for the film rights. And, I've since learned that is just, that doesn't mean that anything will necessarily happen, but unbelievably, something did happen. And so, and I was involved in that. Wayne Wang, who's the director of the movie, very much like working with writers. And so I got to go out and I learned how to write a script, and that was fascinating. I got to go to the movie set, and it's just such an amazing cast. Cicely Tyson and Eva Marie Saint, and you know Jeff Daniels. It's Anna Sophia Robb, and so I got to meet all of those people. And the day that I came to the set, um, they had spent all day trying to get the parrot Gertrude to land on the dog's head. And, this is before CG was fully formed. So they were actually the actual bird landing on the actual dog's head. And no one was pleased with me by the time I showed up, because it's just like, why did you have a bird landing on a dog's head? They ultimately got it. And Dave Matthews was there that day, so I got to watch him. So it was all just amazing. And when you're the writer of the book, and a movie's getting made, you don't get to control things, but I've learned that it is wonderful to get to witness the magic of people making a movie. So I've learned to say yes anytime I get the request to make a book into a movie, or the invitation to come to the movie set. So that's happened a few times too.
the making of movies is magical. And one really cool coincidence that I noticed is Anna Sophia Robb, as you mentioned, who plays Opal. She also starred in Bridge to Terabithia, which was a book that you actually wrote the foreword to in an anniversary edition. So, what is casting like with movies, if you don't mind me asking? Do you have any say in who's cast as your characters?
I don't, and I remember how many. I remember when Wayne Wang was, doing casting for Opal, and he would keep. It was one of those things again where I was in the loop. I would get to hear about it, but I didn't get to control it, and it was fascinating to watch. And I think that they really chose. Anna Sophia Robb just does a beautiful job, and really, like, that was the first movie that she was in, and to watch her, she just grows. She grows up just the way Opal grows up in the course of the movie. It's amazing.
I love that. So my next question for you is a little bit more about your writing journey specifically. You mentioned on
Mhm.
your website that you received 473 rejection letters, and I can only imagine how frustrating that might have felt. And my question for you is, what was the most difficult rejection you received, and how did you learn to overcome these rejections and continue writing and believing in your stories?
Yeah, I think I'll take the second question first. It's like,
Yeah.
how do you keep on going with all the rejection? And I think for me, it was that I had waited so long to start writing. It was like one of these things where I knew that I wanted to do it, and I talked about doing it, and I dreamed of it happening. But that was how I spent most of my 20s, wanting it and not doing it. And by the time I sat down and started to do the work, I just, I had it, I got it in my head that the only person I couldn't make myself talented, and I couldn't make myself lucky, but I could make myself relentless.
Mm.
That was within my power to do the work and to keep on sending the work out into the world. So it was just, I think that as much as I regret those wasted years of when I was 20, it was also that was what gave me the determination or the clear-sightedness to see that it was just going to be up to me. I couldn't, if I gave up, then that was that was on me, and so I just decided not to give up. And then the worst rejection, I think, like before Winn-Dixie, I had written a picture book that I'd gotten in the door with Candlewick, and I'd done rewrites for an editor. And
Mm.
finally, she said to me, "It's not working."
Oh.
And I thought, this is the hardest thing of all, to think that I'm good enough to get this far, but not good enough to get the rest of the way. That one really kind of took the wind out of my sails. But I just went back to writing again.
Yeah, you have to keep writing, and
Yeah, it's just, it was just, I just couldn't give up.
right. So many of your stories feature an animal as a prominent character, or
Yeah.
a highlighted or special cameo. So what compels you to write about animals? What do you feel they add to your stories, and what sort of connection do you have to them?
Yeah, and this is I mean, it's kind of reached a ridiculous level if you start listing out all the animals, and it's nothing that I do consciously, but I mean, I think it's three-part the answer here. One, I love animals. I thought I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was a kid. And it's good that I didn't become one because I don't think I could have done it. Um, so I love animals. That's one thing. Two, some of the books that just really moved me and mattered to me when I was a kid featured those animal protagonists. I loved Paddington the bear. I loved Stuart Little. I loved the mouse and the motorcycle. And so I think that that's part of it, writing my way back to being a kid. And then this third thing is just like I have found that as readers, we tend to let our guard down a little bit more for animals sometimes than we do for each other. And so it's kind of a shortcut to the human heart in a way. And I don't use it purposely that way. Maybe it just works that way for me as a writer. It's just like it's easier to throw your heart over the fence, kind of.
Mhm. My next question for you is about a story that features an animal as a prominent character. It's actually a picture book of yours called Great Joy. I have it right here. I got it from my local
Oh,
library. I love it. I love the story. And
oh,
my question for you is about the line that your main character says at the end of the story. Behold, I bring you tidings of great joy. So what does this
yeah.
line mean to you?
That means, what comes after that pronouncement is a two-page wordless spread where everybody is inside, safe, seen, together, warm, loved. And that's what that means to me, is that that great joy of being welcomed in, and that it is a responsibility that we all bear towards each other to open the door and to let people in, into the safety of togetherness and being seen. That's the great joy.
That's so beautiful. That is the perfect answer. And that's the perfect answer. My next question for you is kind of on that emotional level. Your stories balance joy and grief in a unique and beautiful way. How do you find that balance without making your stories feel too heavy or too light for certain readers? I mean, you've published at least 20 children's books. So, is there one book where you kind of feel that you've mastered that balance, or is there one that you really struggled with?
No, and it's that balance is something that I've had reviewers and savvy readers, as such as yourself, point out to me, and it's something that I'm not aware of as I'm writing, and I feel like if I make myself aware of it, if I pay attention to it, I'm going to mess it up. But part of it comes from that thing where. And I remember Beverly Cleary saying this in an interview where she talked about the fourth grade her was easily accessible, always. She did not have to try to remember that kid. And that's the way it is for me. I remember that 8-year-old. That 8-year-old was terrified and hopeful. That 8-year-old saw beauty everywhere and was afraid of what was going to happen next. I was just open to everything, and I hated to be condescended to. And I think that when you're telling a story, you have an almost moral duty to tell the truth, but to make the truth bearable. And so that is that balance of hope and fear. And I think that it all comes from that 8-year-old in me and letting that kid have access to the story as I'm writing it. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. My next question for you is on a somber note, the final question in the interview. I've loved talking with you. This is one of my favorite interviews of all time, and I mean that.
Oh,
This is a question I ask everybody that I interview. If you could be or meet any literary character, by that I mean you could be or meet your favorite character in a book, or maybe an author that's had a lasting impact on you, their books rather, who would it be and why?
as I would probably pick a literary. No one's ever asked that question, so let's just say that first. It's a beautiful question, and I love it. Um, and as somebody who writes books, and as somebody who, if you ask me to define myself, who I am in the world, the first answer is always I'm a reader.
Mhm.
And I have learned that as a messy human being who writes books, that the most magical thing is the story and not necessarily the messy human behind it. I think of how I am. And so but I guess still I would love, we wouldn't have to talk if I could just sit in a barn with E.B. White.
That is a
Um,
perfect answer.
yeah,
Love
for
it.
just a little while. We wouldn't have to talk. I wouldn't ask him any questions. I wouldn't ask him any advice. I would just sit and look at the world with him. That would be a beautiful, wonderful thing. Yeah, it's a beautiful question. Thank you for asking it.
Thank you for such a great answer. E.B. White's one of my personal heroes, so at that's a beautiful answer.
Oh, thank you, Ethan. That was a beautiful question. It made me cry to think about getting to sit with him in a barn. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
looking at the world with him, that would be an unforgettable experience.
right,
I
right.
mean, I feel like even just a minute with E.B. White, a minute with him, you learn so much about the world, the way he saw the world, completely different than most people.
Right, and his openness to it, and his sense of wonder.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
This has been so much fun. I've loved this interview. Your answers were perfect. I mean, it's hard to say, like, what is a perfect answer, but I feel like you kind of gave them. I think my heart is full after this interview. It really is. And I mean, you've
Mine
made my
too.
day. You've made my day talking to you. And
Yeah, and you've made mine. It's just, you asked beautiful questions and you ended with the most beautiful of all. So thank you. Yeah.
thank you. So, everybody, I think we should have a moment with the round of applause for Kate DiCamillo. 25 years of Because of Winn-Dixie in the world. That is amazing. Virtual rounds of applause. Rounds of applause.
And and in turn, you and I will applaud all the readers and all of the teachers and librarians who are out there doing the beautiful work of putting books into kids' hands. So thank you. Yeah.
Absolutely. And everybody, if you have not yet read Kate DiCamillo's books, you 100% should. They will touch your heart. They will. I mean, we talked a little bit about how E.B. White looks at the world differently. I feel like Kate DiCamillo's stories help readers look at the world in a different way. I feel like they open your stories have opened my eyes, Kate. And this interview means so much to me. Talking with you means so much to me, and hopefully it means so much to everybody watching. Check out Kate's stories, and if you've read some of them, continue reading them. Maybe read them again. I find that with every book that you read, there's always more to discover. There's always little details that you might have missed, whether on an emotional or on a literal level. So, thank you all so much, and happy 25 years of Because of Winn-Dixie. Stay safe, everybody. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.